In your life, Caitlin?
So a lot of med spas, a lot of aesthetic practices come to me wanting to scale their business. And unfortunately, many never do because frankly, they are focused on the wrong things. And I don't want that to be you. I don't want you to feel really stuck, right? Feel like your business is stagnant or worse, going in the wrong direction. So today, I would like to share with you some of the bottlenecks, the vulnerabilities, the constraints that I see every single day in med spas that is holding them back from being able to scale. So, I want to first give you kind of a framework on how to identify those constraints. And then I am going to go into some specific examples of very common constraints that we see in med spas every single day. Because I don't want you to be someone that has been at the same revenue year after year. First, I don't want you to be at the same or going backwards, worse yet, right? And so I want you to keep two very important things in mind that you should be doing um, monthly, right? If not at the beginning of every single week, right? On Sundays in my business, as I'm planning for my next week, this is a tool or a skill or a step or a process that I do every single Sunday in my own business that I want to share with you. So, the very first thing that I do is to remind myself that I need to put my CEO hat on, that I need to be the visionary leader in my business, not an employee, right? That I can't just be on that hamster wheel of doing in my business, that I got to put my CEO hat and find out, which is step number two, what is that constraint or bottleneck in my business that is holding me back from really scaling and growing. And this is often where I feel like med spas are holding themselves back, that is preventing the growth that they are really after because they're so busy in the day to day of just doing, surviving the day, putting out the fires, that they're not identifying the true constraint, obstacle, bottleneck in their business, that once they solve that, that it's going to open up the doors to the growth and scalability that they're after. So step number one is you got to put your CEO hat on. You have to be the visionary leader in the business. You can't just be the doer, right? So you got to remind yourself all the time is, am I really being a CEO or am I being a soldier? I'm being an employee right now? The second thing is I have to find and solve the constraint or the bottleneck in my business. So let's jump into what are some of those bottlenecks that we find so often with our clients, and we're helping them solve those every single day here at Diamond Accelerator. All right. So one of the biggest ones is staffing. Staffing that you are often afraid to hire for a number of reasons, or you're waiting like, if I just get this done, right, then I can hire, right? Or I don't want to hire because it's going to take so much of our time. And the reality is that, you know, a team member should be contributing at a certain level, and then once they reach that, whether that's a 80% utilization rate or a specific revenue target, right, then you need to reload and continue to hire. Or maybe you need to provide them with an assistant so that they can see more patients. Maybe you need to be able to delegate more roles and responsibilities to another team member that is going to then allow you to be able to create the onboarding or the recruitment process so that you can confidently hire a team member, right? And so I was talking to a business owner this morning, and it's a 2-woman show, right? And she is doing really well, but she's afraid to hire because she's just like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't know how to do that. Well, guys, all of those things can absolutely be solved, right? Like, you don't have to be the one that does the onboarding. You don't have to be the one that trains them or holds them accountable. So don't allow these false narratives or excuses that we have in our head to prevent us from growing and scaling our team. I also will tell you that when you are growing and scaling your team, a constraint or bottleneck that holds people back is that, they are stuck at whether it's like 5 or 10 employees, and they just feel like they're on this hamster wheel, right? They'll get to 10 and then they'll lose 3, and then they'll get back to 10 and then they'll lose 3, right? And they don't really ever identify of, why do we keep going backwards, right? Do I not have the right clearly defined roles, responsibilities, KPIs, benchmarks? Do I not have someone motivating them, holding them accountable, right? Because oftentimes it's just a free-for-all, right? Of like, well, I'll take what I can get from that employee, right? Or like, I'm okay with them just being a warm body, right? So that's often what we see holding people back, is that they're afraid to hire, right? They also have false expectations of, I just need to do this, achieve that before hiring. And I'll tell you that a new employee is an expense in the beginning, but if you have the right structure and systems in place, then you should quickly begin to make them profitable in your business. But if you just hire without that structure and accountability, then of course it's going to be an expense to you and not a profitable position. So you want to have the right systems, the right compensation plan, the right KPIs and benchmarks so that you can grow them in your business. Another bottleneck that we see has to do with inventory, right? And your cash flow. It is very expensive to run a med spa. And if you don't have a good handle on your ordering and your inventory, tens of thousands of dollars can be wasted for good, bad, and indifferent reasons. Let me just give you some examples to think about here when it comes to inventory and ordering. So number one, reps are really good at saying that, oh, when you buy this special package in promo, you get access to this big discount, right? In some cases, that's great, and you want to take advantage of that. But you need to manage your cash flow. You also need to understand that if you can't move that product before it expires, or you don't have a plan of action to be able to move that, then it's not in your best interest. And it doesn't matter how good the deal is at the end of the day, right? And so you need to keep that in mind. You also need to not allow your employees to just order willy-nilly. You need to get a handle on it, right? You also need to be monitoring your consumables, especially in the injectables, right? We had a client that literally didn't realize that $8,000 to $10,000 a month was being utilized in injectables from her team because they were just putting in 100 units in their face and for them and their friends and family anytime they wanted to, right? They were utilizing, they were giving themselves a butt, right? In injectables, and they didn't even realize it. They were just comping it. Right. And yes, we want to allow our team to have access to services and treatments and products because that's going to make them more confident when they actually use the services. But you need to have parameters around that. So pay attention to your ordering inventory and your consumables. The next thing is inspecting what you expect, right? This is having KPIs, benchmarks, setting goals. So many people are just taking what they can get. And so a constraint in their business is relying on our team to be as good or as great as you, that for them to love your baby as if it's their own baby. And if we are not providing them with the structure, the accountability, and the feedback loop, then you are leaving revenue on the table. So that's why it's so important that you set KPIs and benchmarks with goals, right? So goals should be absolutely about revenue, right? And you can have you should have individual in a team goal, but you will need to have KPIs and benchmarks that you are monitoring, because that is the activity, and numbers don't lie. That is the activity that has to happen in order for you to hit your individual and your team goal. Okay. And so some of the KPIs that you should be after is utilization, right? And then if you're not hitting certain utilization, then what is revenue generating activity that you should be doing to increase your utilization, and coaching on that. Average revenue per hour, right? That will help identify if they're under training, if they're not recommending a comprehensive treatment plan, if they're having trouble getting a commitment and keeping a patient on a schedule to the treatment plan, right? And then coaching on that. Rebooking rates, right? These are all KPIs and benchmarks that you should absolutely be tracking, because data doesn't lie. If you're not tracking data, you're going off of feel, you're going off of emotions, right? Well, I feel like patients love her. She does beautiful lifts. I really love the facials that she does. Customers tend to love her, right? Those are all great and important things. But at the end of the day, you're running a business, and you have to make decisions based on data, not off of feel. And especially as you grow and scale in your business, you absolutely have to be basing things off of data and revenue, not just going off of feel, right? And if you're ever going to have a self-led business, you absolutely have to be basing things off of revenue. And not just, taking what you can get for your team. Okay. So let's see, let me look at my list here. Training to confidence. Okay, so when you buy a device, or when you get certified in lasers or in injectables, right? The didactics of doing a treatment, that's wonderful, and that is great. But if you want to be an A player, if you want to be an injector that's doing $1,000 or $1,500 an hour, if you want to be a laser technician or an esthetician that's doing, $500+ an hour, then you have to invest in your personal and professional development. And some of that, I do believe, is the responsibility of the business, the med spa, to provide for our employees. But you also want growth-minded individuals that are going to invest in themselves as well. And sometimes that could be, paying for their own training, but sometimes that absolutely should be expecting them to utilize some of the free training and resources that you can provide them, right? Like, for example, I have access to, I spoke at Aesthetic Next this year, and I have the virtual training portal that I have access to all that training. And I gave that access to my team because I want my team to learn about some of the great workshops and sessions that was at that event. And that doesn't cost them anything except for their time, right? But you have to have employees that are growth-minded that are going to take advantage of that. Because when you are more confident in your job, right, and your skill set, then you're going to not only give a better experience and result with your patient, but you're not going to undertreat. You're going to be a real leader in the consultation room and educating them on what preconditioning their skin should look like, what a comprehensive treatment plan, and then transitioning into maintenance. And oh, by the way, this is the medical grade skincare regimen that you need to do to protect your investment that you're making with this treatment plan to get the result that you are after. And you can't do that if you don't have confidence in the services that you are providing. You can't do that if you just get the 3-hour training that the device company gives you when you buy them a machine. So education has to be a priority, and it has to be a lifelong mission, right? It has to be something that is always at the forefront to continue to sharpen our tools and our tool belt. Mindset. this is something that is really important in your daily huddles and your monthly trainings and your one-on-ones. And here at Diamond Accelerator, it's like a daily thing that we're talking about, because if you don't have the right mindset, it's really hard to give your clients a great experience. It's really hard to show up to work and give 110%. And it's really easy, especially as women, and we're wives and we're mothers and we're running 100 different directions on top of our professional responsibilities. If we are not in the right mindset, it is really hard to be an A player. And so we like to not only train, motivate, reward, but also put people on performance improvement plans based on core value and mindset, right? And so all your core values is going to trickle in to mindset and helping people grow both personally and professionally. And that's going to help build a better culture. It's going to help build a better team. It's going to help women to show up and perform for themselves, for their clients, for their team, and for the med spa. So you don't want to discount that at the end of the day. And then the final thing is that really prevents people from scaling, that I see very commonly, is that, again, there's no structure in place. There's no, this is the way that we do it here at Glow Med Spa, right? Everyone is just doing it their own way and figuring it out as they go. Now, some people have some decent onboarding and you'll spend a lot of time with them and this is how I want you to do it. But then there's no accountability or feedback loop in place. And so pretty soon time goes on and now Sally's doing it one way and Julie's doing it one way and Caitlin's doing it one way or here. And it's fine, it works, right? But it's not a scalable model. And oftentimes we see the A team and then the C team, right? And so what you got to do to level up everyone's performance and really build a strong culture and team that's scalable is that you got to think of Starbucks, right? If I have my coffee in Boise, Idaho or Chicago, Illinois, it doesn't matter. The coffee tastes the same. The experience is the same. And so you want to build that same structure and support and culture and experience in your med spa. And that's how you have a duplicatable, replicatable model in your business, is when you have the right systems and the right culture in place, that it levels up everyone's game. And that now it's not like, ooh, I can only give new patients to Sally over here because she's great, right? She's my A player. And then I'm just going to, give returning clients over to Sue because she does a good RF microneedling treatment, but she's never going to sell medical grade skincare. She's never going to add in another service line, right? Like, guys, we have to raise our expectations, right? We can't accept mediocrity. We can't accept just having a warm body in a position. Those are the mindsets that is holding you back from scaling. But we have to put our team in the best position to succeed by having a strong culture, right? And to have a strong culture, you really got to be led by sharing core values at the end of the day. And how you develop those core values and just don't write them on a document and then forget about them is that you train, that you have conversations, that you motivate, that you reward, and that you put performance improvement plans together based on your core values, okay? And if that's something that you feel like has been holding you back in your business, I can tell you that it's absolutely probably true, right? So we have like the activity-based things and the system-based things, but too often people ignore culture and core values. And, you can get to be $1 million business by having crappy culture and a crappy team. But when you want to grow and scale and become a multi-million-dollar business and love your team, love showing up to work today, be very profitable, have a win-win environment for everyone, you not only need the systems in place, you need a strong culture. Because without a strong culture, like the money it's good, right? But I'll just tell you, we had a client that's doing $5 million plus a year in revenue, and she hated going to work every day because the culture was so toxic in her med spa. And last year she made the decision of like, it's not worth it anymore. Right. And she did an overhaul on her systems, on her core values, on their daily huddles, on their compensation plans, on how they reward and reward people, and what they tolerate and don't tolerate. And, there were some growing pains. But I can tell you that they are not only like thriving now from liking to go to work every day, but their revenue now has really grown because everyone is working in concert together, right? And shares the same mission and core values, patient experience, right? And excited to be a part of something that is bigger than themselves. All right, so I'm happy to open up the floor if anyone has any questions that they want to review over one, how to switch to that CEO mindset to identify the constraints that's potentially preventing you from scaling, right? And a practice to do that is every Sunday night before you start your week, reminding yourself of being that visionary leader in your business, being a CEO and not employee, and then trying to identify, right? And sometimes it's a bigger project, right? Maybe it's all month, all quarter. I'm focused on this one constraint in my business and solving that. But sometimes it is a weekly thing, but I got to remind myself, what is that constraint or bottleneck that I need to work on? And then I hope sharing with you some of the common examples of constraints that we see every single day with our clients that's potentially holding them back from scaling, right? Holding you back from doubling your income, holding you back from being able to go from a single location to a multi-location, holding you back from bringing on a new service department to diversify your revenue mix, right? To bring on a new team member, right? These are all things that are constraints in businesses that keep you where you're at. Right. And in the competitive landscape of the med spa industry and how the competition is growing, which feels like sometimes every single day. And they're, the allergens making it more difficult to be profitable and to do business, and device companies are knocking on your door, right? And private equity is telling you these like false narratives of what they can do for you, right? All of these things can be distractions on really focusing on you and your business and finding the bottleneck that is really going to take you to the next level. So, all right, guys, any questions here before we wrap up? I could go on and on all day about constraints, but I hope that you have found this valuable and that you really put that CEO hat on, right? And that you identify what is that one thing that I need to solve, right? And that I can't put down until I freaking solve this problem, right? Is it your rebooking rate? Is it your average revenue per hour? Is it your utilization rate with your providers, right? Are you paying people to check Instagram? Are you paying people to run to Starbucks to get their coffee because they're not seeing patients, right? Is inventory walking out your back door or, being injected into your team's face and you didn't even know it? What is that one constraint that you need to solve, right? That's going to help you either free up the time so that you can continue to solve the next problem, right? And maybe that's that fire you need to put out, or what is really that bigger constraint that you need to solve that's going to grow your revenue, to increase your profitability, to drive more new patients, to grow team members, right? To grow service mixes, to diversify your service menu or your revenue pipelines, right? So that you aren't held hostage by an employee, or God forbid a device breaks down and all that revenue goes away. Then what are you going to do, right? So really put that CEO hat on, and figure out what is that that bottleneck, that constraint that has held you back from scaling, and go all in, and solve that constraint, and just see what that will do for your business. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me here. If you liked this training, be sure that you share it with your team or another med spa that could benefit. And you can catch the replay on my YouTube channel at any time. I encourage you to check out that channel. We have over 400 videos, free trainings, all on how to grow and scale your med spa. Join us every single week, same time, same place. Catch us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thanks, guys, for joining us.